Zoom queen. And so if there's anything that we need to know, if there's anything we're doing wrong, if there's any actions that we need to take relevant to Zoom, then Hayley's there to tell us what to do. And before we move on, I would just like to say and welcome that I'm pleased to say that in the room today we've got our fellow founder Rebecca Sedler, and we've got Joe Butling as we always have, so welcome Joe. But yeah, warm welcome to Rebecca. It's great to see you in here. So if you give us a wave, Rebecca, so everybody can see who you are, that'd be wonderful. Let's start like we always do with our reasons for having our One for All in the first place. And I think that what it has demonstrated is a great place for us all to drop into, and we do feel connected. And I hope that you feel that we have shared and gained knowledge during these 14 weeks. We get some great positive feedback, and that comes because we get some great positive interaction from you all. So, you know, we talk about our daily challenges, as it says, and, you know, it's time, it gives us all time to reflect and talk about common topics that we all have on our mind. And so today, I'd like to welcome our speaker, Angela Booth. Welcome, Angela. So Angela is the Development Planning and Partnering Manager at Thames Water. Now, Angela's been at Thames for 5 years. And yes, she's definitely led lots of major projects at Thames, but the thing that she stands out for me with is that she has built their internal engagement programme, resulting in a fabulous result, which has increased their employee engagement massively. But more importantly, and recently, which she's just told us she was on the radio for on Friday, which she's very proud of, is that she's played a huge part in changing the way that Thames Water advertise their roles. And as a result of that, their application of women has increased from 8% to 46%. So well done, Angela, on that. I think that's a great achievement. However, that's not what Angela's here to talk about. I just wanted to fly a flag for her. Angela's here to talk to us today about the impact of COVID and lockdown on the water market, and she's going to talk us through a little bit about how that's affected not only water, but how Thames Water have taken that opportunity to educate their customers. So over to you, Angela.
Cool. Thank you, Angela, for that introduction. And I have to say, obviously I didn't do that all myself. There is a fantastic team of people at Thames Water all across the business, but specifically with the role profiles. I can talk more about it later, but there's a whole core group of women who work together in our women's network to change the status quo. And some of them are on the call today, so credit to them as well. So yes, I'm Angela Booth, Development Planning and Partnering Manager, and what that means is I'm basically in the sales and growth department of our business. So whenever there is a new building being built, whether that be residential, commercial, retail, we need to be able to provide them with clean water and wastewater services. And so my department looks after how do we get the water to the site, to the customers, the new customers, and do we have enough capacity, or what do we need to do to create the capacity to be able to serve them? So that's kind of the space that I operate in. And I'm also chair of the Women's Network at Thames Water, which has been running for almost 2 years now, and we've had some huge successes, which I'm really proud of as well. But I've been asked to talk about the impact of COVID on the water industry. And, you know, what we do is delivering a life's essential service. And I'm sure, like many other utilities, our customers sometimes take this for granted and don't even know about what we do until something goes wrong. And because our business deals with a really precious and natural resource, extracting that from the environment, you know, serving it to customers, taking it away, and then processing it and returning something that's really high quality back to the environment, sustaining local rivers. It's really important that we understand what happened as a part of COVID. Now, the word unprecedented has been used so many times that I feel like it is now definitely precedented. But we had business resilience plans in place coming into this, and it's needless to say that we were not prepared. We did not know what to expect when COVID hit us. So it has been a massive learning experience, and we are stronger for it coming out the other end. So I wanted to start on the next slide. I wanted to start talking about how consumer behaviour has changed throughout this period as a result of lockdown. Now, across the Thames water patch, we've got 15 million or so customers, 3.5 million or so households, and we've got around 500,000 smart meters installed across our network. And we use this information to provide us with 15-minute readings for non-household customers and hourly readings. All this information gets sent back to us, and we use that to understand what's happening across the patch. And then, we've got all these other customers that don't have meters at all, whether they be smart meters or dumb meters. So we really do need this data to extrapolate it out to understand what's happening in real time. And this means that each day we receive around 10 million meter reads, which informs us how much water is being consumed across our region. And yes, the data has been really, really valuable in understanding the impact of COVID. So as you can see on this slide here, the household usage increased significantly after lockdown was announced on the 16th of March. And it's not just actually lockdown or the changes to people's working patterns and where they were based that had the impact. So you can see we put in there some lines around temperature and weather as well. And the bank holiday and the warm weather also had a part to play in this increase as we headed into Easter and into the Maybank holiday weekends. So you can see actually some property groups increased in over 55% of their usage, but particularly when you look at the detached households coming into the bank holidays, some of their usage jumped up by about 22%, which has a really significant impact. And it's not just about the volume or the changes in the different house types, but it's also about location as well. So when you look at our densely populated areas like London, what we saw during lockdown was that demand in London decreased and the demand in Thames Valley and the provinces outside of London increased. And what that did was put strain on assets that were built to cope with a much smaller population, people travelling into the centre of London each day to work. So that was a really interesting way of looking at this as well. So this is one way of looking at it. If we then look at our non-household consumption, which is on the next slide, it actually reduced really significantly, and it peaked at about a 32% reduction over a 7-day comparison, which you can see on the chart here. So this chart's laid out a little bit differently. We've got columns for each day of the week, and you can see that significant drop off as we go through once lockdown was announced. And so when you look at our total demand, actually our network has shown us, or did show in the early stages of lockdown, a slight reduction in the demand, and that's because the retail operators were using less water. I want to put that information together because I think that these charts can be a little bit confusing. So on the next slide, the below graph, the below line shows this chart shows the percentage of properties with a 0 variable usage. So that means that properties that aren't using any water. And you can see that along the bottom, this dark line shows that household properties, weekdays and weekends kind of blurred together. And I'm sure that for all of us on the call who've been working from home and not going to the office, that's been our physical experiences, that they kind of just roll into one. But in terms of the demand on our resources, that's what we've seen in terms of household. And then in the blue line above, we've got this strange situation with non-household, obviously showing the biggest change. So for example, on Sunday, the 29th of March, we saw over 30% of our non-household properties didn't have any variable usage, as in they were just not using water at all on weekdays or on weekends. And those natural peaks and troughs that you can see there is usage during the week and vacancy or non-usage during the weekend. So all of this information that we're talking about now is possible to collect because of the smart metering data. And I'm sure that other industries who are much further ahead in terms of their smart metering program already know. But we're able to collect all this data because of the smart metering without putting anybody at risk. The data has been collected in real time, and it's a lot more detailed than what we can do when we go past in a vehicle to take a read from an AMR type meter. And obviously that's meant that we've been able to continue to build customers in the household space, which has helped us in terms of cash flow as a business. In the non-household market, it opened up the competition in the water industry in 2017. And so having the smart meter data has been really important to us to be able to help retailers submit meter reads and identify and support vacant properties, and also predict the impact of future events like this on our demand. Temporary business closures have had a huge impact on the non-household market, and we've been working with Water UK to have discussions with our market operator Mosul to make sure that we can take forward our thinking on establishing a more resilience in the non-household market. So that's to provide a better service to customers whilst minimising the bad debt, which we've seen increase since the COVID period started. And PricewaterhouseCoopers has been working on behalf of Ofwat to pull together a whole industry view on this, because we are only 3 years into an open market space in non-household. So a different view of looking at how COVID's impacted us is on the next slide, is our education program. So we set an ambition at the beginning of this funding period, this 5-year period, that we would engage with every school-age student, every school-age child by 2025, every child across our region. Obviously a huge ambition, and one that was, I think, challenging before we got into this period, but our current program was switched off overnight when COVID hit. Site visits or school visits were stopped with immediate effect. Large community events were stopped as well. And social distancing put a very quick end to our community speaker program. So we accelerated our plans to create online digital engagement to allow wider participation with our program and support families who are now working at home as part-time parents and part-time teachers as well. So the lockdown period actually gave us an opportunity to really accelerate and deliver that program more quickly. And as part of that, and I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, as part of that, we've had the opportunity to engage with our audience in a different way and to respond to some really interesting requests from our stakeholder teams. So if I just share my screen. I'm going to share with you one of the resources that we've created and that we've put out online, and I hope that you enjoy it. It will take 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Paul from the Thames Water Education team. Today we're going to do a little experiment called Poo Power, and Ellie and Annabelle are going to help me.
For the experiment you need a small bottle, a balloon, some yeast, some sugar, and a little bit of warm water.
Right, so first let's put about half a teaspoon of yeast in. That's it. And then let's do the same with the sugar. So this is like sewage sludge. This is the solid stuff that's left over, all the poo and the dirt and the toilet paper. Right, so now we need to put the balloon on top, and this mixture will start making gas. What do you think will happen to the balloon?
It's going to blow up, Daddy.
It's going to blow up, hopefully. So this is our effort. Annabelle, how do Thames Water turn this kind of biogas into electricity?
Burn it.
Burn it, yeah, exactly. So we'd love to see your efforts, so if you want to send them in on our social channels. Thanks for watching and good luck with your experiments.
Okay. Let me just make sure I'm stopping the audio on that so it doesn't keep playing in the background. Okay, so this was one of the efforts that we started after lockdown hit. So the home lab concept was initially launched to allow direct engagement over social media channels, and we've had 6 episodes or editions like this that we've rolled out on circulation on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media, LinkedIn and Instagram. And actually our first attempt at this hit over 2,500 views across those 3 platforms. So we were really pleased with the engagement that we had there, and it definitely takes us a step further to be able to engage with every school-age child across our patch over the next 5 years. We've also been able to deliver, and we have more of these planned as well, multiple career and STEM talks across using Teams, which is our platform that we use at Thames, and also working with our University Technical College network to have speakers for schools and engineering across the UK. One of those, I know Dina's on the call today, and she presented to the UTC this afternoon for our International Women in Engineering Day event with them. And we've also supported new resource development with the International Eco Schools program. So Thames Water Resources have supported that, and in our first attempt as well, we had 6,500 impressions using that method too. So really something to be proud of coming through this. So moving on to the next slide, I guess this brings it much closer to home for the work that I do day in and day out. As I said, I work a lot with developers, large consultants, with the construction industry, and this is some information that my team has pulled together. At the beginning of the month, we only had 28% of sites open, construction sites open across our region. That's London and Thames Valley, and actually that's really ramped up as we move closer towards the end of the month to 76%. But throughout this time, we've had some huge challenges in construction, which is going to impact, I'm sure, all of our businesses. So you can see on the right-hand side here, some of our major customers and stakeholders saying, actually, we used to have lifts that could take up 10, 15 people at a time, and now they can only take one person up because of the social distancing. So they're really struggling to move forward at pace, although the sites might be open for construction, to continue to build to their programs. Now, this is important because across the UK, Savills expect us to have a third less homes completed this year, which will be about, they're estimating around 177,000 homes in the UK. And that's been impacted because of COVID lockdowns and because of the restrictions on social distancing. So I've talked about this kind of this big picture stuff about what our customers are doing, about some of the good news stories about how we responded. But I think, I really want to boil it back down to what we do. And the reason why I love my job is because we are really delivering an essential service to our customers. It's a really precious resource, water. And so, Hayley, if you could just flip on it and play the next video. I've got a game for everyone. I have to play it a couple of times, but I want people to just have a guess. This little trickle of water that's happening in this loo. I want to have a guess on how many litres this leaky loo might be losing per day. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute and be brave and say what their guess might be about how many litres this loo might be leaking each day if it's running at this rate.
15.
15. Anyone else? 10. I can see some comments in the chat as well. 20.
50.
50. Dina's going high at 50.
Olympic swimming pool.
Okay, so actually a leak this size, even though it doesn't look like a lot of water's trickling through, across a 24-hour period, this toilet is actually leaking 600 litres per day. And if that was to continue for a year's time, that would add £400 additional to your annual bill if you're paying on a metered charge. So I guess, throughout this period, although water has been absolutely critical to people maintaining some kind of normality and standard of life in their homes, I think it's really important that we all remember that, this isn't an infinite resource, and that even though it is there very, very reliably when you turn the tap on, that actually it takes a whole lot of people and a whole lot of processing to get that water to your house, and even just having a small trickle at the back of your loo can not only cost you but also cost the environment. So something to be mindful of. Okay, so just a couple of fun facts before I go out for questions. Some of the things that you might not have thought of in terms of the impact on our industry. We have been, alongside Water UK, in discussions with the British Beer and Pub Association on the destruction of waste beer, which has arisen because a lot of the pubs are closed, so they're having to destroy a lot of beer, and obviously that needs to go somewhere and it ends up going down our sewers. So we have to continually reinforce our position that we need to have consents in place to be able to take on this product, which, you know, if we didn't know it was coming, could be quite detrimental to the process. So that's been happening as well. And also, you know, if we really zoom out, and I have to say, I'm not an expert on the global markets of water, but the global water and sewage market is actually worth £530 billion, and the growth of the industry is expected to drop this year, drop in terms of its growth size. So it's expected to grow at just 1.4%, and that's, you know, less than the 6% that was anticipated previously, and that is because of the impact of COVID. But, you know, because we are an essential service, because, you know, the world is developing and our reach is expanding, the market's expected to recover very quickly and continue to grow at 8% from 2021. So in 2023, the water and sewage industry will be worth $675 billion. So something to look forward to, and definitely a strong and stable place to work if you're looking for a job in the future. Okay, so that's all I've got prepared for today. I can see there's some bits in the chat, but I'm not sure if those are questions or just guesses. But, you know, I'd like to open up to any questions or conversations around this topic.
Can I ask a question, not directly to you, Angela, but to everybody else? Like, how, from what you've heard, how does that compare to the experiences of the other people who work for utilities on this call?
When you say, sorry, Dina, when you say compare, do you mean compare to
the Thames experience, from what Angela's just said?
the water companies that are on the call, how does that compare to them?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Hayley Bruce here. I work for Anglian Water in the leakage department. I suppose the main comparison that I can draw on, and we've had very similar experiences, but it'd be the smart metering. We found with the rolling out the smart metering program, it's gave us a real insight into how our customers are using. I mean, I work in the leakage department. Historically, when we've seen massive peaks, you know, in usage, we've reverted back to it's got to be leaks. And with the implementation of the smart meter data, it's given us a real insight.
Yeah. And is the insight that actually customers use more than what you think?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really worrying, isn't it? You know, we assume, and particularly at Thames, although we've just hit our leakage target, which is fantastic and the biggest gain that any company's ever made in terms of a reduction in leakage, we've still got quite a lot of leakage. And we do have really old assets. London is different, it's built in a different time. All of those reasons are valid. But as we continue metering, and I know Claire Jenkins works for one of our partners who delivers meters for us, as we continue metering, what we're finding is that consumption is actually a lot higher than what we thought. And so I think that there's a real responsibility for all of us as carers of the environment to make sure that we're doing things like turning the tap off, you know, when we're brushing our teeth. And, you know, if we put the paddling pool out for our children, to empty it onto our gardens rather than turning the tap on, you know, things like really simple things like that just show that we're responsible users.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Angela, hi, this is Kripa. I had a question. Given the COVID scenario and given the potential inability for people on the field to work together to repair, that would have made an impact on repair works, etc. Did you see a usage of technology come in to make up for some of that? And do you see a new normal for water as you go down into the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in terms of use of new technology in the field, I don't think that I've seen anything that's been implemented since COVID had started, but there's a couple of people on Thames on the call, so they can jump in there, that's helped us work more operationally efficiently outdoors. But one of the things that we have seen is that we've had, in fact, it's been a mixed responses from councils and local authorities. So a number of them have said, the roads are clear, come and do your repairs now, because it's not going to disrupt traffic and all those reasons that we have to wait the 3 months to get permission to work on the roads. And then in the more suburban areas, actually, we've had we've had our road closures withdrawn because they've said you can't come and work on the road now because we need that space for cars that are no longer traveling to go and, to go to work. So we've had that reneged. In terms of technologies moving forward, there's some really exciting things happening in this space, both in terms of safer ways of working, which I know that Morrison's are exploring, in terms of air picks, for example. But one of the most exciting that we went out to socials with more recently is not what you would expect. It's using a sniffer dog to detect water leaks, and actually we're currently training a sniffer dog to detect sewage leaks as well. So it's I wouldn't say it's technology, but it's an exciting new way of working that can hopefully give our customers a better service. In this case, we're looking to detect small leaks of sewage that we can resolve before then potentially impacting a customer with sewer flooding. And with the detecting water leaks, the sniffer dogs are really successful, and we're able to make some really good progress there. So we're hoping to do the same in waste. I don't know if anybody else would wanted to interject about what they've done differentently. But
Deborah Hood and Catalina. If Deborah, if you want to go first, now you've put your hand up virtually, obviously, if not everybody didn't see it.
Hi, yeah, my name's Deborah. I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, water industry, and I'm currently a management consultant at Arcadis. But I've experienced from Thames, Severn Trent, Northumbrian, and of course still public owned Scottish Water. What I've seen over the last couple of years, but what has really exasperated itself with the big freeze thaw that we had, and now we've actually got COVID, is some of a reduced lack of preparedness still in some of the water companies in terms of contingency planning. The big freeze really thought it out, and the regulator pushed for a lot of changes. We've got a lot of aging assets due to that privatisation all those years ago, and the way we're using our water, the way new houses are built, and the way legislation is changing, it's putting a lot of focus on our industry. But now COVID is also putting focus on how do we prepare for the future and how do we engage with our customers. As an example, in terms of getting prepared for those town hall events that you have with the big developments, where you would generally get maybe the retiring generation who've got time to walk to the events to come and see what the big latest thing in the village is happening about. That's now opening up to a new audience digitally, with Gen Z coming through and being able to access. And how we're going to see this change, to me, it's just an exciting time, and it's not going to change overnight, but COVID is just going to pave the way for the whole industry to get better with so many different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I agree, Deborah. And actually, I think there's a couple of things, privatisation. I mean, we are where we are now. And my reflections on Thames Water is that we've got investors now who are in us for the long haul. And so I don't think that we're going to be doing things like under-investing our assets, because these investors will still be here when the assets do eventually fail. And we've seen that, they've added additional money in the last AMP period. We've seen their commitment, by putting their hands in their pockets. So that makes me feel good. But on, the consumer behaviour, I think particularly with water, it's not expensive. It costs around £1 a day to have water in your house, as opposed to your other like electricity and gas, it's a bit more expensive. So, if you've got a leaky loo and it ends up costing you £2 a day, that's still not that much money. And so money doesn't really motivate. But one of the good things that's happening in the industry is that they're looking to, in fact, it might even have gone through in the last couple of months without us noticing, have water efficiency labelling coming in on products. So as well as having your A to E energy efficiency rating, you'll have a similar water efficiency rating. So that can really help inform customers about what products they want to choose. And that's exciting for me, looking at the construction industry, because at the moment, the guidelines that builders have to meet It's just basically saying if you can put on a flow restrictor and one of those shower heads that makes it a little bit uncomfortable, and you've met your target 110 litres per person per day at design stage, then that's fine. And what customers do is they come on and they say, well, this isn't a great shower, I'm just going to take that water efficiency bit off. And then we end up having much higher usage. So it's about education. It's also about legislation. We need to make sure that people need to comply to certain standards. But in terms of our operating as companies, we need to make sure that we've got motivation from the top to be successful in the right way. And I feel like we're at a turning point, or we've been at a turning point for the last 2 years since we've had our new investors come in. Was there somebody else that had their hand up as well?
Catalina.
Yes, thank you. So I'm from a different industry. I'm more from the energy industry. So I would like to ask 2 questions. The first question is, what are the environmental issues in your industry? Because I'm not aware, like I suppose there are, but I'm not aware of the detail. And the second one is if you have plans on your energy usage and how this COVID-19 has impacted the way you use energy for.
Yeah, so I'll start by talking about the second one first, honestly, because I know more about it. But then you'll have to remind me, my memory's not very good, but I'll come back. We'll cover them both, Catalina. So we are, obviously everyone wants to be net zero. We've got plans, all of that's happening in the future. But actually, we're already the largest renewable energy producer inside the M25, and that's because we create poo power. We can take away waste products and create biogas and use that. And actually what we do is predominantly we use that to power our sites, because treating sewage in particular is a very energy hungry activity because of the process involved. So we do that in the first instance, and then in the second instance we sell that back to the grid. So we already produce around a third, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, around a third of the energy that we need to run our business, which is really good considering that we have, over 350 sewage treatment works across London and the Thames Valley, and provide clean drinking water to all of those customers as well. And we have plans to increase that further by extracting more of the energy from sludge. So at the moment, I think that we extract anywhere from around 30 to 45%. And that depends on which process we're using. And we're looking to recover, using new processes, up to about 80% of the energy potential within the sewage product. And not only does that give us more renewable energy, but it also means that there's less of the byproduct that ends up going to land. So that's a really exciting space. I think that has our usage changed during the COVID period, other than the impact on our office spaces, which to be honest is minimal, considering that we spend, Dina can correct me, but how much is it per day that we spend on powering Beckton, which is East London's largest sewage treatment works, Dina?
It's thousands.
Thousands of pounds every day. I know, maybe we don't want to tell everyone, but we spend thousands of pounds every day just to aerate sewage in East London. It's a lot of money. So I can't say that we've had a significant decrease in our energy usage, but certainly from working from home, we've mothballed a lot of the offices. So that would have been a decrease. And your first question, I think, was around environmental impacts. So really, we see ourselves as environmental protectors. Like I said at the beginning, what we do is extract water from the environment, using a few different methods, put that through treatment so that we produce world-class drinking water, that's a higher quality than the stuff that you buy in a bottle, and deliver that to your home. But then it's this process of taking it away, I think that's, for me, I feel much more connected to it because I worked in sewage before, but this is really the important environmental protection piece. So rather than that going out into rivers in a state that would cause disruption and harm, we need to make sure that goes back in a state that's really going to help protect the natural environment. And that's, for me, that's us being environmental protectors and heroes. So when you talk about kind of the threats to our industry, obviously there's a supply issue. Had the Abingdon Reservoir been approved 20 years ago, or I don't know, maybe Deborah can probably remember, but a long time ago, we wouldn't have this issue where we need to be able to supply more customers in an ever-growing population, particularly in London. That's certainly one issue. And global warming, when we really talk about that, I think what image comes to my mind is there's a strip of colours showing the average temperature across the last 100 years. It's been on the news a lot recently. And you can just see that the average temperature globally and in the UK is rising in an upward trend year on year, which not only, which affects our processes, but, it affects customer behavior. And all of us as customers, not only do we want, people to pick up the phone quickly and turn around our customer service and everything else, we want to be able to turn the tap on and use an infinite amount of water for whatever we want to do, whatever whim we have. So that increasing customer expectation is I would say is causing a threat to the environment, because it means that we need to abstract more. And obviously all of that we operate in a very heavily regulated environment. I'm sure you do as well, but governed by multiple agencies who are there to protect the environment as well. And it's a push-pull relationship where we need to make sure that we have enough to provide our customers, but we're also incentivizing their behavior, and also returning it to the environment so that it can go through the whole water cycle and come back again so we can use it again. Is that okay? Did you have any follow-ons, Catalina? Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I think that was very educational, Angela. I know it definitely was for me. And it was interesting, the parallels between water and energy in two ways. One is the way that the usage had changed from domestic and retail, etc., and how the lockdown had affected that. But also in how you're trying to educate the customers about efficiency. We're all also trying to do the same thing all the time with energy as a country, aren't we? There's a lot of parallels really between the two industries. And I think your talk has very clearly demonstrated that. So thank you for that. I think it was very, very useful. And I think everybody would agree. Just what I wanted to do before we close it off was, obviously I wanted to thank Angela for a talk. It was really informative, and whatever happens, I will definitely be fixing my leaky toilet a lot quicker than I would have done in the past. So if nothing else, you'll gain that for the people who have been on the call. But I also, as Angela mentioned, Angela started the Women's Network at Thames Water. But I wanted to thank her on behalf of WUN, because Angela has always supported us from day one. And more recently, Thames Water have become one of our sponsors. And when I say more recently, I say more recently. And I think that in the current situation that we're in lockdown, I think that's a fantastic achievement. So I think we'd just like to thank you for that, Angela, as well as your talk. You've done a great success. And I think that, your Women's Network and the work that you're doing is demonstrated by the applications that you're getting, by the work, and the number of women that are involved in your Women's Network is a credit to you. So well done. And so thank you very much for your talk. And moving on, I mentioned last week that as lockdown starts to ease, less people are now working from home, or if they are working from home, there's a little bit more to do. And so we're going to be moving to monthly WUNFORALL meetings. So our next monthly meeting will be on the 29th of July, when we'll have Julia Pike joining us from EDF. And she'll be talking to us about how nuclear power can help contribute to achieving our net zero target in 2050. So that's going to be another very interesting conversation for us. Once again, thank you to all our sponsors. We've already thanked Thames Water, but thank you to all of the other sponsors that we have. Don't forget to post us anything that you think is valid. I think we've had some great conversations today, but if you can remember to tweet us, Instagram us, LinkedIn in particular seems to be a favourite for everybody, so a mention on there would be great. And hopefully we'll see you next week. But I think, Hayley, we've got a poll first before we say goodbye properly. No poll today. Is that because it's our last day? We're all feeling a bit down about that. I've got Jo. Rebecca had to go because she had a meeting, but it was great to have her on phone. Still got Jo. Anything from you, Jo?
Sorry, I had to unmute. No, that was fantastic, Angela. Thank you. Really interesting. And I think Angela said, parallels are many between the two industries. So really, really interesting. So thank you for that.
Okay, so thank you everybody, and hopefully we'll see you all on the 29th. But watch our LinkedIn, because it'll all be posted, and the invites and the link to the event will be there. Helen, do we know when the link will be there for the invite? Sorry, unmute.
It's there already.
Oh, it's
I just want to remind everyone it's a change of time.
Yeah, so it's going to be 6 o'clock. So we're going to have a trial, because the 3 o'clock seems to be, now that people are getting a little bit busier during the day, the 3 o'clock people are tending to say it's just not a more convenient time would be better. So we're going to try 6 o'clock. What does everybody think about 6 o'clock? Do we have a thumbs up for 6? Yeah, brilliant. Oh yeah, I've got lots of thumbs. That's great. That's great. Lots of smiles. So we like that. And it always was 6 o'clock when we were meeting face to face. And it always included a glass of wine. So bring your wine, girls. Bring your wine. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great month, not a week now. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.